Hey folks, how are you? This is, thanks for joining us today. This is a special Trade the Chain episode, midweek, election week. It's been, wow, it's, what day is it? It's Wednesday and we're still doing the elections. It's been about, we're going on 24 hours. This is a really unique time. Just because we have a very contested election in the U.S. here. We've been following it. Most Americans have been following it all night, as well as, of course, us, the crypto markets. So we have Bitcoin. I mean, it bounced up to 14,000. There's a couple of different reasons we feel that is. We're going to go over them in this episode. I want to introduce CJ and Monty, our crypto technical analyst from marketrebellion.com, as well as my co-host Ryan Gorman. I won't say he has the best hair in crypto today, but we have a couple different viewpoints we're going to go over. One is we're going to hit the charts with CJ and Monty, as well as Ryan's going to put up some pretty interesting stuff to do with AI and social media and the price action. So everybody, thank you for joining us. CJ, Monty, what are we looking at on the charts on this Wednesday midweek during the election? Who knows what's going to go on once it's done, but right now, what are we looking at?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Appreciate it as always. So last time we were talking about like how a Democratic president may be bad for the election or bad for the stock market collectively, but that's just not what we've seen as a result of Biden leading in the polls here. And what I think the market is interpreting that as is continued stimulus post-election. And so not only is that going to be good for stock market and relatively hard assets, but of course it's going to be good for Bitcoin and crypto. A lot about like what John and Steve Ehrlich and your other friends were talking about on the recent show that you guys had. But going over to the big board, like you said, we got Bitcoin over 14,000 now, coming down a little bit in the last couple hours. As you can see on the hourly chart here, just in the last few hours, like when we opened this morning, we've come down after reaching that green sequential 9. On the daily chart, we're in a pretty similar state now because we're on a green 9 as well. But this one's a tough one. This is a tough 9 because it's not necessarily definite whether we're going up or down because it's kind of like this doji candle. Typically, when we look for 9 reversals, we're looking for a 9 to occur at the peak of the trend. And while this is the case, I don't know. If I was long, I wouldn't really use this as a time to take profit or initiate a short or anything like that. But I'm kind of 50-50.
No trade zone?
This is really interesting.
To be honest with you, I've never actually seen you, this thoughtful about it. I mean, this is awesome. I'm hanging on to your every word at this point.
Yeah, man.
I really agree with CJ in the sense that it kind of does feel like a no trade zone almost because there's just so much uncertainty right now with the election. It's still very much up in the air. It is looking like Biden may win, but there's still so much uncertainty. Who knows what's going to happen following this election and all that. And that's been proven by hard facts. So skew.com has a few data points. Like the 30-day implied volatility of Bitcoin is at an all-time high. It's at 59%, and the 3 to 6 month volatility is also it also jumped to over 62%. So this is a massively volatile market, and we've seen Bitcoin jump up above 14K. But right when it does, people are quick to take profits because of this volatility, I think, and they're worried that following the announcement of the results of the election, we may see a reversal in price, and that's not what. So people are looking to take profit above 14K. I mean, that's a great trade, 14K. No matter how you look at it, if you're getting out at 14K, it's a good trade. And so I think people are playing it safe right now with all this uncertainty. And I understand why they would do that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is, you know, it would be a lot of hodlers or long-term traders have waited a long time for 14K to see this again. So, you know, I don't disagree that a lot of them are taking money off the table and reaping their profits. Maybe they're hoping for a pullback after the election is settled and maybe, you know, move back in. But this is definitely an interesting chart, to say the least. A lot of people excited about the 14K mark, and they deserve to be. So yeah, I mean, this is awesome. Now, quick question though. We're talking about Bitcoin. Everybody's focusing on Bitcoin. What has Ethereum been doing this time? And by the way, we got an important announcement today on Ethereum 2.0, which was interesting. Came in a tweet. Has this been doing its own thing based on Ethereum 2.0, or has this been kind of going through the election cycle as well?
The question right out, Alex.
Yeah, I think looking at the chart, I think it's pretty clear that Ethereum, the announcement of Ethereum 2.0 did have a pretty significant impact on price. And it does feel for like the first time in a long time. I mean, we've kind of been seeing it a little bit this year, but it truly does feel like Ethereum is kind of decoupling from Bitcoin right now. It seems like it just almost seems like they're two completely different markets. And with all the fundamental news around Ethereum and all the advancements being made, like Ethereum 2.0, it's understandable why it's moving in kind of a different way than Bitcoin. But like we talked about last week, I mean, ETH really does have a safety net in Bitcoin because there is so much Bitcoin locked up in Ethereum contracts. So I think these two will move in tandem during a massive bull run. But right now, like during this period of uncertainty, we're kind of seeing a bit of decoupling, which is pretty fun.
Do you think, I've spoken to a handful of analysts today, throughout the day, and some of them are of the opinion that Bitcoin moved up in sympathy with ETH based on the developments that happened today because of how much Bitcoin is wrapped up on Ethereum. Do you think that that's a contributing factor here for Bitcoin's rise?
Sure, it definitely could be. And that's kind of a cool thing to think about is, I mean, we always talk about it happening the other way, but it is a two-way street. And fundamental advancements in Ethereum can drive Bitcoin up because, like we said, there's that much money locked in. And overall, it just enhances the credibility of the space. But for me, I think I don't know if the spike in the price of Bitcoin can totally be attributed to the move in ETH. But I mean, we did have a nice move above 14K. And I think if it can consolidate above there, I would remain bullish on both assets, definitely.
Yeah, and like what I'm looking at here, what I've got outlined is that Bitcoin dominance has been steadily increasing throughout the past week. This is not necessarily a market increase that has been hitting all of the altcoins. We've seen a lot of altcoin capital bleeding into Bitcoin, which is kind of not a great sign, at least from what I like to see. I like to see a ton of money truly come into all of these altcoins, which shows interest and speculators coming into the space. When people are just buying up Bitcoin, typically it can be from alts bleeding out into Bitcoin, but I think also institutional investors and some other people from traditional finance are stepping into the space. But I thought Steve made a really good point the last couple of days, and this is something I've thought a lot about myself, is that once we get above 15K, there's going to be a mad rush to grab up as much Bitcoin. Like it's scarce and people want it. That's really all that's going on. And that FOMO that hits people past that price level, since we have no resistance level until 20K, I think we could fly up there very quickly. And like Monty said, if we get a consolidation, I have it on the 4-hour chart here outlined. This is what I like though. This is what I like to see from a bullish perspective. We got a green 2 candle that had some bearish momentum. It's not above the previous green 1. If we get a nice consolidation above 14,200 and we have a green 2 candle here on the 4-hour closing above the previous one, I think it's likely we'll have a go at 15K, but I'm a little bit torn here just because of this 9. It's making me want to be fairly cautious, but
What do you think is the main hurdle, the main impediment to getting to 14.2? Because we've been pushing that, for a good part of the day, and that keeps being the resistance level. What's holding it back?
I think what we mentioned earlier is just the profit taking. I mean, and I think once this election, once the result is final in the election, I think that's when we may start to see some consolidation or a reversal. But I think just the uncertainty right now is kind of forcing people to take profits and kind of preventing price from consolidating above 14K. But speaking to what CJ said about how above 15K, you kind of just anticipate a big bull rush. I totally agree, because beyond just the market psychology of FOMO and all that, technically speaking, there isn't much resistance above 15K. I mean, we're kind of entering into like uncharted waters here. And as a result, there's really not any upward resistance. So I think once we consolidate above 14K and once we start testing 15K, both of those things are going to take into effect, the FOMO and the lack of upward resistance.
And is there a particular number range that you have where we'll consolidate to and be kind of happy for a while?
That's my next question.
I'm just stealing them all today, Ryan. I'm just stealing them all.
I think it's tough to pinpoint an exact number. And I think this move might not happen right away. I think like even once the results of the election are announced, there's still going to be lots of contention. And like we were kind of talking about before the podcast, like who knows what's going to happen? Is this going to go to the Supreme Court? It's a very tight election. So I think the uncertainty will linger. But once that's gone, I mean, once it breaks 15K, I mean, that's going to be a big bull run. And it's hard to pinpoint a number because it's just, like I said, it's kind of unprecedented. And also it's going to happen kind of like exponentially, I'm anticipating. So for me, I mean, a safe estimate, I'd like to see consolidation anywhere above 15K, but I think the momentum of 15K could drive it possibly up to 25K and even higher. So for me, I'm going to guess somewhere between 25 and 50. I know that's a really wide range, but
No, that's good. And, to that point, I get asked a lot about when the big money starts rolling in, when the institutionals or the treasuries start coming in. How is everybody going to get Bitcoin? There is more people hodling Bitcoin than they are trading it in the market, which is an interesting statistic. But this is one of those things where so many instruments have become available. So don't worry about scarcity of Bitcoin because no one wants to give it up. We now have a very robust, deep options derivatives market. We have various wrapped coins. There are so many different ways to get exposed to Bitcoin that we're going to be just fine when it comes to that. So the world isn't running out of Bitcoin. Don't worry about it. Now I'm going to go to Ryan because Ryan is now he's the closest thing we have to a political analyst on the show, and I've just nominated him as Trade the Chain's political analyst. So like he's some guy on MSNBC or CNN right now. We have a question. Could you share what you think about what just happened with Michigan, Wisconsin? And I'm assuming because we're not truly political analysts on the show, what went on with Michigan and Wisconsin are there any short-term effects that's going to have on the crypto markets at all? I do want to say we're just not looking out at Bitcoin as well. We're looking out at the altcoins. We've had some run-ups on the overnight last night. Sell from Celsius did a nice 5% pop. A lot of volume going into that coin as well as some others. But Ryan, our new political analyst here, with what's happened with Wisconsin and Michigan, is there any short-term turmoil to be set? And by the way, this goes in hand with a very interesting slide that you've put together, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. I think given how close these races are in these states, this is going to end up in the Supreme Court, similar to Bush v. Gore did, with Florida with those hanging chads. So
the hanging chads.
God bless. I miss hanging chads. I wish that right now.
I had some bad scallops that night. I remember that. I stopped eating scallops in the 2000 election.
But I mean, this is going to the Supreme Court. Pennsylvania is going to the Supreme Court. I'd be shocked if they didn't. Trump's already signaled that he's going to do that. Rudy Giuliani's on his way to Philly right now to give a press conference of some kind. I'm sure that'll ease tensions. And I think ultimately a number of these states, they're going to be recounted. And that uncertainty, I mean, it isn't really good for government because when you have the remainder of a session where a lot of these Congress people have been voted out or they're on their way out due to retirement, there's no real motivation for them to pass stimulus as they've shown, or they would have done it before the election to begin with. So that's going to kind of paralyze U.S. government efforts to help stimulate the economy, possibly. And the more the economy kind of peters out, I think that can only be good for Bitcoin. I mean, because people are going to be looking for alternative sources of alpha if the stock market rally starts to fade, despite today's massive pop in tech stocks. Biden, as of right now, is only 17 votes away. So what's that? One state? If he wins Pennsylvania somehow, which all indications are he has at least a chance of doing so, it's over. And it goes to the Supreme Court. So that'll be fascinating to see how that turns out. Do you guys have anything to add there, Matt, Monty, rather, or CJ?
Yeah, no, I think it's it's kind of a bit frustrating that we're not going to get a result right away, and we're kind of going to be lingering in this sense of limbo.
I've slept 3 hours in the last 24, man. I'm losing steam here.
Yeah, and that's why I just want to get some sleep. I want to know where the market's going, and it's not looking like that's going to happen anytime soon. But that is okay because it gives us kind of a chance to it gives us a chance to analyze the market a little bit more, kind of understand how this volatility may affect the market, and it gives people a chance to get in before this move happens. And I think any sort of reactionary move would happen right away, but I think the longer time it takes, the more solid and the more the healthier the market will be. So,
yeah, I mean, I think we're in kind of a neutral state. I don't think that people are going to be that upset from an economic perspective, in the sense that we're going to see a massive reaction. The polls have been showing that Biden's leading all the way up, and the market has loved that. They've responded to it very well because I think what it means is additional continued stimulus after the election. So with Biden, you either have kind of the continuation of the status quo, or you have Trump, which we pretty much already know what he wants to do. So, while it kind of sucks, we don't get the results, and there is a lot of uncertainty about who is actually going to end up being president, I think the market's going to respond in a relatively similar way, just because that's what we've seen thus far. And who am I to argue with the market?
So Ryan, when it comes, you put together an interesting example of some stuff. Do you care to share with us what your findings are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not saying that this is what was driving Bitcoin prices today. It's just a correlation I noticed, a few observations throughout the course of the day, and I figured I'd plot them out on a chart to share. So it's noticeable that Bitcoin was, the rally was kind of petering out and was starting to go down. And then Trump goes on TV around 2:30 in the morning, prematurely claiming he won the election. And then after that, it started to pump. Then the rally dies and he starts tweeting about voter fraud after he wakes up in the morning. 1 tweet, 2 tweets, 3 tweets, we go up. We start to go back down, more tweets about how they're finding votes all over the place for Biden. And that 500,000 vote advantage in Pennsylvania is disappearing. Boom, we fire right back up again. We start going down, more tweets about voter fraud in Michigan in a Senate race and mail-in ballot fraud in Pennsylvania. And it doesn't necessarily start pumping back up again, but we do find support where we were otherwise starting to find profit taking. Now, I don't know that there's ever been this much of a correlation between Trump's tweets and Bitcoin. And I don't know that that's necessarily what's driving the markets, but it could be something worth potentially watching as the rest of this election cycle plays out, especially as we end up going to the Supreme Court and some of the other darker scenarios people have predicted, which I won't mention on here, but there have been some out there scenarios people have predicted based on Trump's prior behavior and signaling that could lead to some opportunities for savvy Bitcoin traders to make some profit. I'll defer to the experts, Monty and CJ, on this. And I mean, what do you think of this? Is this a real correlation, or is this just me playing with Twitter and charts and finding something fun to look at?
Well, it is an interesting correlation, but the thing about indicators in markets is that, like, technical analysis is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The reason why the RSI tells you that price is overbought is because a lot of traders are looking at the RSI, all thinking to themselves, okay, price is a little bit overbought. I'm gonna cut up my position here. It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy. So you have to ask yourself, how many traders are really following this and are really aware of the correlation between Trump's tweets and the actual price of Bitcoin? If they are, maybe there is some savviness that we can take from this chart. But
well, I have a question. I mean, Ryan, so basically what you're saying is the angrier Trump gets, and we all know that he likes to tweet when he's angry. I've never actually seen a happy tweet. I don't know, or maybe there's been a few happy tweets. But the angrier he gets, the more he tweets, the more Bitcoin price could shoot up in the short term. Is that correct? Is that basically what the chart's kind of saying to us?
I mean, it's saying that, but I don't know that that's the direct cause and effect. But I mean, I've never seen Bitcoin prices rise, not necessarily in lockstep, but I mean, the timing is rather conspicuous, if nothing else. And there may be something to it, or maybe I'm just grasping at straws here. But
I think it's wonderful. I think Biden has Michigan, Wisconsin have been called for Biden. He may tweet some angry stuff right now, maybe an arb opportunity there. I do not know, but I have to be honest with you. This is actually, you get 2, 3 coincidence, but you get 6, 7. An angry Trump makes for a happy Bitcoin.
One thing worth noting, you mentioned earlier, I can't remember if it was Monty or CJ that mentioned that Bitcoin's kind of dropped since about 2 hours ago. Trump hasn't tweeted in 2.5 hours. I'm just saying it's there. I mean, for one day, maybe that correlation exists and then it evaporates into some of the other correlations that Bitcoin had or haven't had. But I mean, he hasn't tweeted in 2.5 hours and all of a sudden the price is dropping again. We need more tweets. That's what we need.
Interesting. Well, I have to say that, when we do our regularly scheduled episode on Friday, it's going to be really interesting to see what's happened between now and then. I'm not even sure that we'll have an election decided by that time, but if we do, either way, it's really going to be interesting. This is actually fascinating. I didn't go through crypto in the 2016 election. So to go through with you guys and see how the market transforms and reacts and stuff like that is a life lesson. Guys, thank you for hopping. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
Bitcoin has gone up in every election cycle leading into a presidential election.
That is true. It has.
So that's also worth considering when looking at Bitcoin going up.
Well, real quickly, has there been a performance marker based on a party that's won, or if this is, if there's been acceleration after a winner has been decided, or just from the election itself?
It's been a lead up, I think, right? Because it's Obama won the first time, then Trump won the second time, so it's not party dependent. It's somewhat of a noticeable correlation there as well. And CJ, were you going to say something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, and it's tough with Bitcoin, right? Because we've only had a couple elections, but with the S&P 500 going all the way back to 1984, if the S&P 500 has not rallied 3 months prior going into each election, then the political candidate of the opposite party has always won. And Trump was up like 0.5%, but we are trending down all the way the previous week in the S&P 500. So
Money. Go ahead, CJ. Finish up. I'm sorry.
I was finished.
I don't want to muddy the waters. By the way, I love how the world got to see the Silk Road T-shirt. But you know, I don't want to confuse things. But we also had a halving this year. It's also been cyclical that the halving, the price of Bitcoin steadily goes higher after each halving. So that coupled with an election,
Difficulty as well.
mining difficulty is at an all. I don't know if it's an all-time high, but it's a peak high or something like that, right? Right now.
The difficulty was adjusted, so it's not at the high anymore, I don't think. But I think that also it was one of the largest difficulty adjustments on record, I think, unless I'm wrong, guys.
Yeah, it was. I mean, so we have a lot of different variables playing into it. But from when I'm sitting back and I'm looking at the data CJ and Monty are bringing to the table, I'm looking at, the halving record. I'm looking at the election record. I'm looking at little stuff that you don't even think about, like Trump tweeting. I mean, I can't help to feel but bullish right now. And I think Matt, throwing out $25,000 figures, he's not going McAfee on us. I think there's a great chance that Treasuries are going to start hopping in at the $15,000 mark. So,
agreed. That's what we're waiting for.
All right, guys. I can't wait until Friday's episode to look back in history and what we spoke about today and what's happened in between. Even though it's only 48 hours away, a lot of crap can happen. Thank you so much for hopping on. Monty and CJ, marketrebellion.com, hopped on last minute from Chicago. Thank you very much. Ryan and I, we got to get back to work. Ryan's our new political analyst, in case you didn't hear earlier. But we'll see you guys Friday on Trade the Chain.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.